everybody, this is Diana from So Very Crafty, and we are here today to make this fun and functional little fleece flap hat. This is a super simple sewing project that any beginner sewist can make in no time. This fleece flap hat only requires one pattern piece and a couple of long rectangles for the straps, and you are done and dusted with this project. It is truly a beginner sewing project. You can make this in about 10 minutes, maybe 15 at tops, depending on how fast you sew. But it is a super simple sewing project that anybody can make. So I urge you to give this project a try. And if you like it, give me a thumbs up for this tutorial and subscribe to my channel, and head over to www.soverycrafty.com for more sewing and crafting tutorials, and check out the rest of the channel for loads more sewing videos on for beginner and intermediate sewists. So let's get started on how we actually construct this super simple fleece flap hat. Started on this project. Well, the first thing that you need to do is download the pattern, and I will put the link to the pattern in the description section of this video. And the pattern looks like this. It actually comes in two pieces, the top piece and the little flat part, and all you need to do is tape it together at the arrows here and cut it out, and this is what it looks like. You are going to cut two pieces of fleece, an outer piece and a lining piece, because keep in mind that this particular fleece flap hat is reversible. So you can have two fun fabrics on the inside and the outside, a solid on the inside and a fun fabric on the outside, whatever you want, two solids, it doesn't matter. But it is reversible. So you're going to cut out two different fleece fabrics, or you can cut out two same fleece fabrics, it's up to you, from this pattern. And you will notice that part of this pattern is cut on the fold. So you're going to want to fold over your fleece and cut some of it on the fold. And when you cut it out, it looks just like the pattern. I have a red that I've cut, and I have a sort of all over plaid that I've cut. And when you open it up, it looks like sort of a crown with two little flaps on the bottom. There is only one piece to the outer and one piece to the lining. And that's all the pattern that you need for this fleece flap hat. You are also going to cut out two outer pieces, or you could cut two lining pieces, it doesn't really matter, that measure 1 3/4 inch wide by 15 inches long. And that's going to be for the little ties that hang down, or if you want to tie them, you can use them to tie them up. That hang down from the flaps. So that's it. That's all you need for this particular pattern. So you're going to start out, and you're going to take your outer fabric piece, and you are going to take the two ends, the two side pieces, and you are going to stitch them right sides together. Now this is fleece, so there's really no right side or wrong side. It's all the same. So just pick whichever side you want to be your right side or your wrong side. So place them right sides together, pin them, and ultimately you are going to stitch this side using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. But we're only going to go to the sewing machine once for this outer piece. So the next thing you're going to do is this part that looks like the crown is the crown, and we are going to stitch each crown piece that's next to each other. We're going to pin those, and we're going to stitch those using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So each one that's right next to each other, we're just going to stitch. So for now, we're going to pin them. Now, if you are a more advanced sewist, you probably don't even need to pin this at all, and you can just head to the sewing machine and whip this up. But for you beginner sewists, you're going to want to pin these pieces together. So that's what I'm going to do for you. And you can see how this is coming together. And keep in mind that fleece is a little stretchy. So we're just going to continue to do that, and we're on our final crown piece. And now we have what looks like the outer version of our fleece flap hat. As you can see, we've got our flaps hanging down and we have the crown. So we're just going to head over to the sewing machine right now, and we are going to stitch this crown and this side together, and then we are going to make an identical piece from our lining. It's going to be made exactly the same way as the outer piece, and then we are going to join those together, and I'll show you how to do that. So let's head over to the sewing machine, and we are going to make these two pieces together, and I will come back and show you how to put these two flap hats together so that they make one flap hat that's reversible, and that's going to keep you nice and warm in the winter. Okay, here we are at the sewing machine, and we are about to sew our fleece flap hat together. This is a very, very simple project. So the first thing we're going to do is stitch that back seam using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Okay, so we have that stitched, and now we're going to stitch these crown pieces together. Again, using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Now keep in mind, when we get to the top, to the actual crown of this, it gets a little fidgety, but that's okay. Just make sure that when you get up here, you remove these pins and you'll be just fine. And there we have it. Our crown is stitched all the way around the top, just the way it should be. Now I'm going to go ahead and stitch the other lining piece, and we'll go back and finish up this project. Okay, so here we have 2 fleece flap hats that need to be joined together. So what we're going to do is we're going to turn one of these right sides out, and we now know that the right side is the side without the stitching. So we are going to turn one of these right sides out, and we're going to place it inside of our lining piece, which is still wrong sides out, but making sure that these 2 pieces are right sides together. But before we move on, we need to make our little straps that hang down. So what we're going to do is we're going to take both of these straps, and we are going to fold down one end, fold them together, and just stitch along the side using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So I'm just going to run over to the sewing machine, and I'm going to stitch one side using 1/4 inch seam allowance, and I'm going to come right back. Okay, so once we are back, we need to turn this long tube right sides out. And I've stitched across the bottom end to make this easier. So we're just going to get this going and use our chopstick, or if you have that purple thing, that would work just as well. But I had my chopstick on hand for this. So just get it started a little bit, stick your chopstick in, and push it straight down and turn this right sides out. That way you don't have any seam. Perfect. Now, as I stated before, we have placed our 2 fleece flap hats right sides together, and we want to line up these flaps so that they are even Steven. Now we are going to place our straps, the raw ends of our straps, so that the raw ends of the straps meet the raw ends of the bottom of our flaps. So you can just eyeball this and make it so that it's centered to the flap. And I'm just going to use a clip here. The rest of the strap is going to go in between the 2 layers of the flap hat, between the lining and the outer fabric. And we're going to do that on both sides. Now I am just going to pin these 2 together. I'm just going to use a few pins. If you're a beginner, you may want to use more pins than what I'm using. It's completely up to you. You don't need to use any pins if you're a more advanced sewist. And clips work perfectly fine for this. Line up these back seams. and we are going to head back over to the sewing machine, and we are going to stitch all the way around these two pieces. But somewhere on the back part of our fleece flap hat, we are going to leave a little bit of an opening, because we are going to want to turn this flap hat right sides out so that we have no seam showing on either the lining or on the outer fabric. So let's head over to the sewing machine and just stitch right around this and come back and turn it right sides out so that we can finish up our project. Okay, we are here back at the sewing machine, and I am going to start my stitching at the back of my project where I plan on leaving my opening, so that I can stitch all the way around and then leave an opening at the end. And again, we're using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And as you can see, this is where I'm leaving my opening to turn my project. So let's head back over to the workstation and we will finish up our project. Okay, we are back and we have our two hats sewn together, and I am just going to reach in and pull one of these hats out through the opening that we left in our lining. And now we have two hats. We're going to, and we have our, don't forget our little ties. And we are just going to stuff this into our lining. Look at that. Perfect little fleece flap hat. And now what we're going to do is we are just going to head back over to the sewing machine, and we are going to top stitch all the way around to join our lining to our outer fabric piece, making sure that we sew up this opening in our lining, because we have to make sure that that opening is closed. So that's the purpose of the top stitching. So I'm not going to show the top stitching on camera. There's no need to, since we've shown you how to sew around this. But just do some top stitching, close up that opening, and you have finished your wonderful fleece flap hat for this winter, these winter months. Isn't that cute? And so simple to make. Any beginner sewist can make this terrific little project. So I urge you to give this project a try. It is super simple to make. One pattern piece and a few seams, and all that's left is a cute little fleece flap hat. So that's all there is today. I hope you enjoyed this project. Please subscribe to my channel, give me a thumbs up for this, and go out and make your own fleece flap hat for this winter season. And head over to www.sewverycrafty.com for more sewing and crafting tutorials, and check out the channel here on YouTube for loads and loads of other video tutorials on beginner and intermediate sewing projects. Thank you all, stay safe, and goodbye for now.